The 2025 NFL Draft has officially begun and round one is in the books. So in today's video, I want to give you guys my live reaction and opinions for every single pick of the first round. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. All right, here we go. Tennessee's on the board. We think it's going to be Cam Ward. There they go. They take Cameron Ward. So of course, Cam Ward, very solid arm. This is going to be the franchise quarterback for Tennessee. Don't think there's too much we have to talk about with this one. I think the next question for Tennessee becomes, how do they fill out the roster around Cam Ward? And then maybe what's more importantly, what's going to happen with Will Levis? Does he stick on the roster as the backup, or do they find a trade partner to potentially get a few more draft picks? So in terms of the player, it does seem like Tennessee finally has their franchise quarterback. All right, well, I'm watching this live, of course, and the Jacksonville Jaguars just traded with the Cleveland Browns. We don't know the compensation, but I think it's going to end up being for Travis Hunter. All right, so the compensation is Jacksonville receives a second pick, a fourth, and a sixth, and the Browns get the fifth, a second-round pick this year, a fourth-round pick this year, and a future first. This is a risky bet for the Jaguars to take because they are sending 2 first-round picks for, of course, what we think is going to be Travis Hunter, but we'll see. All right, here's the Jaguars pick. I think it's going to be Travis Hunter. All right, it's Travis Hunter. Wow, what a freaking move for the Jaguars. It's a risky bet, but Liam Cohen is not playing around. You now have Brian Thomas Jr. opposite of Travis Hunter, and defensively speaking, Travis Hunter is probably your cornerback one. So this is like the perfect pick. I remember a few months ago when Jacksonville screwed themselves out of the number 2 overall pick. It was like a complete disaster. This is like the ideal spot for Travis Hunter. He can play receiver, he can play corner. I think the big question now becomes, what does Cleveland do at 5th overall? We'll definitely see here in a second. But man, this is an awesome move for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are getting themselves an awesome player, both on both sides of the football. All right, the New York Giants pick is in, and they go Abdul Carter. Okay, that one makes some sense. Listen, I don't love the fit because they already have Thibodeau, they already have Brian Burns. But at the end of the day, you just take the talent. I'm going to assume they're going to probably move off of Kayvon Thibodeau, but man, you're getting a fantastic, just dominant, all-around edge rusher that can get to the quarterback, can be good against the run. Just a very high upside pick here, so I like the pick for the Giants. All right, here is the Patriots pick at number 4. I think it's going to be Will Campbell. All right, it is Will Campbell. I think this is the right pick. They just need an all-around offensive lineman. I think he probably sticks at tackle early, and then we'll see if he can stick at tackle or if he needs to move inside to play guard. All in all, I just think it's the right pick. I'll give this one like a solid B+ or a B. All right, the Cleveland Browns just took Mason Graham. That's a shocker. That is a shocker. Mason Graham was somebody who I think a lot of us thought was going to fall down the board a little bit. He goes 4th overall with Ashton Genty, Armand Membu, Banks on the board. Got to be honest with you, I love Mason Graham. I don't love this spot here, though, with the Cleveland Browns. With that said, Mason Graham next to Myles Garrett should be a nasty duo, so it's not a bad pick. It would get like a C+ grade for me if I had to give a grade to it. All right, the Raiders pick is in. I think it's going to be Ashton Genty, but we'll see. All right, it is Ashton Genty. This is the right pick for the Raiders. Raiders are so bad with the running back room. Genty instantly steps in there and becomes the identity of this team alongside, of course, Brock Bowers. They still got a lot of work to be done. They need an offensive tackle. They might need some help in the receiving core. A cornerback is also a need. But man, Ashton Genty just sets the identity for this team. They finally have a capable enough running back to actually get a first down because they have not had that. So good pick here. I like the pick. All right, here's the New York Jets pick. All right, it's Armand Membu. They secure up their offensive line. This has been a pick that I think a lot of us have been kind of getting towards these past couple weeks. Armand Membu kind of fits in nicely as that right tackle. Olu Fashanu. We all kind of felt like Aaron Glenn was going to build in the trenches, and it just happens to be Armand Membu. Good pick here. I think this secures your offensive line quite nicely. All right, here we go. Carolina's on the board, and they take Ted McMillan. Interesting. All right, this team is going all in on their offense. I don't know if I love the pick. I don't hate the fit. Of course, Ted McMillan on this offense should be a really nice piece for them. I know there's going to be a lot of teams later in the draft that would have loved to have had him, but he goes 8th overall. I'm a little surprised here. I kind of thought this was a Jalen Walker pick, but he doesn't go here. They go Ted McMillan. So in terms of the offense, you have an older Adam Thielen. You're banking on Xavier Legette getting better, but I don't know if there's really a reliable guy that you can, put set in stone that they're going to be a piece of your franchise for the next 15 years. Ted McMillan might be the guy that could be your go-to number 1 option. So I do not hate this pick whatsoever. It's just probably not my favorite pick given the fact their defense is just that bad. All right, the New Orleans Saints are on the clock at 9. I have no clue what to expect here. Oh, they take Kelvin Banks Jr. Okay, so I was actually right on this one. I kind of had a feeling that they were going to be a team that was going to go with an offensive lineman, just given the fact that you drafted somebody last year. You're not sure what you're getting from Trevor Penning, if you're going to keep him or not. Kelvin Banks steps in, probably plays guard early, then moves out to tackle. But no matter what, I feel like you know what you're getting in Kelvin Banks, which is just a really solid starter. Good kid, played for Texas for multiple years. The Saints are going to get a bona fide stud on that offensive line for many years to come. I actually really do like this pick. All right, here we go. Chicago's on the board. Tyler Warren's still available. I think this could be the pick. Whoa, okay. They pass on Tyler Warren for Colston Loveland. Interesting. Gotta be honest with you. Don't know if I like this pick. Now, granted, I do like the fit maybe a bit more next to Cole Kmet. Just think that Tyler Warren's a better player, so it's not a bad pick. Given how the board kind of fell for them, I still would have probably preferred a pass rusher, but Colston Loveland's a very unique weapon that you can use in a variety of different ways. You already have Cole Kmet, so you kind of have two guys with two different play styles, but they also can mesh really nicely together. So I don't hate it. I just probably would have took Tyler Warren. I just kind of thought about it, but Colston Loveland's going a lot earlier than kind of expected. I sort of wonder how a team like the LA Chargers probably feels about this one, because they probably thought he'd be available with their pick, or at least in range to maybe make a trade for him. All right, San Francisco's on the board here. I'm thinking this could be Jalen Walker. Interesting. They go Mykel Williams. All right. Mike Green, Jalen Walker still on the board, but they go with Mykel Williams, the high upside edge rusher with a high ceiling, or I should say a high floor and a relatively high ceiling, a guy who can be opposite of Nick Bosa. With the players still on the board here, though, I don't know if I love this pick. I definitely don't hate this pick by no means. It just feels a little bit early for somebody who I think has a limited ceiling as a pass rusher. So it's not my favorite pick. I probably would have went with Jalen Walker, but I don't hate the pick at all. All right, the Dallas Cowboys are here. Some good players fell to them here. All right, the Cowboys take Tyler Booker. This is the first, bad pick in my opinion. I don't see this pick for the Cowboys. I think Booker is a very scheme-dependent guy. I think he does fit Dallas' scheme in some ways, and I think if he is put in a situation to succeed, him, Tyler Smith, and Tyler Guyton could put together a nice core of offensive linemen for this team. I just got to be honest with you. I don't like this pick. Gray Zabel, I would have preferred. I would have preferred Josh Connerly here. I'm just not the biggest guy on Tyler Booker. With that said, he seems like a good kid with a good playing attitude, a very physical guy. And hey, him and Tyler Smith in your interior should be pretty nasty. So I'm a little surprised by this pick because I did not think Dallas was going to go with an offensive lineman, but it's not the worst pick. I just don't love it. All right, Miami's on the board, pick 13. Oh, interesting. All right, Miami goes Kenneth Grant. I don't hate the pick. I probably would have went with Walter Nolan, but yeah, I don't hate the pick at all. They needed help in the interior of the defensive line badly, especially after losing Christian Wilkins, and they have 3 bodies in that room. So Kenneth Grant is a high upside guy who I think presents a big frame, good against the run, has a ceiling to be a decent pass rusher. So I like this pick for Miami. Definitely is not the flashiest pick, and I'm sure Dolphins fans won't love it, but I think it's the right pick to build up both sides of the line and start off with the defensive tackle, just because most of the offensive linemen didn't fall to them. So I think this is a pretty good pick for them. All right, Indianapolis is on the board, and they take Tyler Warren. All right, this is the right pick. I'm a little surprised Tyler Warren fell this far here because he was a consensus top 10 pick, but he happens to fall here to 14 to Indianapolis. All those mock drafts that I've done where Indianapolis finds a way to get Tyler Warren, it actually happens. So this is a great pick for Indianapolis. They needed a tight end so desperately badly. They needed another person to help create this identity of a rushing offense, and Tyler Warren helps to create that identity while also giving a nice safety blanket to Anthony Richardson. So I think this is a home run hit here for Indianapolis. They just took the best player available, and I like the pick. I also like the value here too. They didn't have to trade forward for him, so I just think it's a win-win. I like this pick a lot for Indianapolis. All right, 15, Atlanta Falcons are on the board, and they take Jalen Walker. A little bit of a drop here for Jalen Walker, somebody who it feels like for every single mock draft, he's almost been kind of penciled in at 8 to Carolina, but then they took Ted McMillan, so things just kind of didn't work out for him there. And this was kind of the next natural spot for him. I'm a little surprised that a team like Indianapolis or even Dallas didn't at least probably take him or something along those lines. But hey, he falls to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are getting a versatile piece, can play off-ball linebacker, can play edge. Whatever you really need him to do, he can do it. He's just the ultimate weapon. And this Falcons team kind of addresses 2 needs with 1 pick. They could use an off-ball linebacker while also using a traditional pass rusher. And I think Jalen Walker kind of fixes both those issues. He's also just best player available. So if you are the Falcons, last year you took Michael Penix Jr. to be your all-star quarterback. And now you're getting a guy on a defense who desperately needs talent, and Jalen Walker fixes a lot of their issues. So I like this pick a lot. All right, Arizona's on the board here. Let's see. All right, Walter Nolan. This is a awesome pick. Walter Nolan's ceiling is unbelievable. It's actually kind of funny. I don't think I've ever attached Walter Nolan to the Cardinals before, but I kind of wish I did more often because I actually really like this fit here. They have a lot of bodies in the edge rushing room now that they added, of course, Josh Sweat. They already have some good pieces around that area, but man, Walter Nolan, if he hits his ceiling, he is definitely one of those guys that could end up being the best player in this draft class. Like, he is just a really high impact player. I love this pick for the Arizona Cardinals. I give this one somewhere between an A- to an A+. I just love this pick for the Cardinals. They needed another younger body with a higher ceiling in the middle of their defensive line behind Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson. Walter Nolan steps in day one, can be an impact player immediately while also developing behind those veterans to eventually become the full-time starter and at some point probably make Pro Bowl. So love this pick for the Cardinals. I also think it makes a lot of sense to build in the trenches on the defensive line more so than what they've already done. So I like this pick a lot. So far, the draft has looked pretty good so far. So let's keep it rolling. All right, Cincinnati's on the board here, and they take Shamar Stewart. Interesting. All right. High upside player. If you guys have watched my past mock drafts, I have at times done Shamar Stewart, but typically my picks do come down to one of like a Micah Williams or whoever might be the case. And then Shamar Stewart is always somebody I do consider here. Shamar is a high upside player. And the reason why I don't typically take the pick for the Bengals is because I feel like they need a solidified guy who can immediately step in day one and be an impactful player. But with that said, if you do want to bank on the upside of Shamar Stewart, you're banking on a guy who easily can become one of the best players in this draft. So not my favorite pick because I probably would have went with a bit more of a surefire guy like a Mike Green. But at the same time, I don't dislike Shamar Stewart at all because he is a very high upside guy who you just kind of have to believe that the athletic profile and physical profile will get him to where he needs to be. So for a team like the Bengals that needs somebody on that defensive line, he kind of fits their mold too. So I definitely think this is the right pick, and I think it's a good pick at the end of the day. All right, Seattle's picking here, and they take Gray Zabel. I don't feel like I got to talk too much about this one. Almost every mock draft had Gray Zabel going to the Seahawks. He's just a versatile guy who fits basically every single need. The scheme fit is perfect. He can play center, guard, tackle, whatever they need him to do. Just a mauler, a dominant player. Just going to fit so nicely for what Seattle needs, and it's just the right pick. Seattle also does have multiple picks in day two, so I expect maybe at least one more pick on another lineman, but Gray Zabel fixes a lot of their issues. All right, Buccaneers are on the clock. I think it's Jahad Campbell. Oh, whoa. Emeka Egbuka's the pick. Wow, interesting. Okay, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans. Interesting pick. I definitely would have went with Jahad Campbell or Will Johnson, because I felt like the defense was a bit of an issue more so than the offense. But I mean, good luck stopping that trio of receivers. I don't get this pick because you also had I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but receiver from Washington, I believe, who he took last year, who showed some flashes. So I mean, damn, your receiving core is stacked, but good lord, your defense needed the help. I don't know. I like the player. I don't love the team fit. I think he fits their identity perfectly, but you just re-signed Chris Godwin, so it's not like you had to replace him. I just think that this is, I don't want to say a wasted pick, but just a weird spot for him to go. I would have probably thought it was going to be a defensive player, but I like Emeka Egbuka though. He's a great player. He's going to be a fun player. I'm sure Tampa Bay fans are going to love the guy. He'll fit their team identity, their culture. Just for me, feels like defensive player like a Jahad Campbell would have made more sense. So interesting pick nonetheless. All right, Broncos are on the board here, and they take Jahdae Barron. Oh, dog, this Broncos defense is about to be freaking filthy. We've been predicting receiver and running back for this team, but man, Jahdae Barron opposite of Pat Surtain, this just became the best defense in the NFL. It already was maybe the best. It is now solidified as the best defense, at least on paper. We'll see if it actually ends up playing out nicely for them. Jahdae Barron is such a good piece for this Broncos team. He can play in the nickel. He can play on the outside. He can play deep in safety. I just love this pick. Jahdae Barron is one of my favorite players in this draft class. Sure, I know you need running back if you're Denver, but you can take that in round two. There's going to be some great backs there. I know you need some receiving help, but I don't know. Emeka Egbuka's off the board. Tet's off the board. You could have went Matthew Golden, but there's some good players in round two. I freaking love Jahdae Barron, and I think the fit here for Denver is just chef's kiss. I love this pick for Denver. Shout out to them. That defense is about to be filthy. All right, here we go. Kind of maybe the biggest point of the draft outside of the top 10. Pittsburgh Steelers on the board with basically every single possibility on the board. And they take Derek Harmon out of Oregon. They skip on Shador. They skip on Will Johnson. They skip on a running back. They take Derek Harmon. Interesting pick. I think it's the right pick. Man, I don't know who's going to play quarterback for this team. If it's Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, or Skylar Thompson, I don't know. I probably would have went Shador here. I don't know who their quarterback is. I don't think you can go in there with who you have on the board right now on the team at least. But they go with Derek Harmon. I mean, Derek Harmon is a really solid defensive lineman who can be a disruptor, pass rush upside, good against the run, well-sized. Could be your Cameron Hayward replacement of the future. So this pick will work out in the long term. I just kind of wonder if we will look back at this pick and say, man, they messed up by not taking Shador, because I can see Rodgers stepping in there, and I also think he might just retire. So a lot of question marks still to go for Pittsburgh. LA Chargers pick is in, and it is Whoa, Omarion Hampton. Interesting. They just brought in Najee Harris, but they decided to double dip and take Omarion Hampton. Interesting. I like the player. Obviously, Omarion Hampton was my RB2 by a pretty long margin. I thought he was a first round overall talent. Just don't really know how much I love the fit, given the fact that Matthew Golden's on the board. Some really other good players are still on the board on the defensive side of things. Going Omarion Hampton, though, is interesting. I guess maybe you don't think Najee Harris is your long-term future, which would check out. He's a bit of an older back. But, I mean, an Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris duo is going to be nice next year. Just kind of feel like it's not necessarily the greatest pick, the pick that I would have done. I probably would have went with Matthew Golden here. But, man, when Omarion Hampton does take over as the pure RB1 for this team, it's going to be nasty. Like, he's going to fit this identity. He's going to fit this team so perfectly. So, I'm not a huge fan of the pick for the now, but in terms of long-term implications, I love the pick. All right, Packers are on the board. Hopefully it's Matthew Golden. He's giving the whole spill here. Oh, they took Matthew Golden. Oh, wow. What an awesome pick. Matthew Golden to the Green Bay Packers as their #1 receiver. It has been almost 20 plus years since they have taken a receiver in the first round. This team has needed a receiver for so long. Matthew Golden just fell right into their laps. He's more than just a speedster. He's a great route runner, very solid hands. This can be Jordan Love's safety blanket. You put him alongside some other really good receivers already on the roster who fit in as more of a wide receiver 2/3. Matthew Golden fits so nicely into that #1 spot. This honestly might have been the best spot for Matthew Golden. So this is an awesome setup for his career, as well as for Jordan Love to finally have a weapon to throw the ball to that he knows is not going to struggle with the ball. He's great hands, reliable target. So this is an awesome pick. Also has versatility to play on the inside and on the outside. So this is a home run hit here for the Green Bay Packers. All right, Minnesota's on the board here. All right, interesting. They take Donovan Jackson, the guard. A little surprised here with Malachi Starks and Will Johnson both being on the board, but they get a guy who could play tackle or guard. Probably more guard for this team. Yes, they made some moves in the offseason, but they're a little bit older. Might want to shore up some of the rest of your offensive line. So this is not the flashiest pick. Again, if I was in that room, I would have advocated for Will Johnson or Malachi Starks to shore up the secondary, but I mean, Donovan Jackson is just such a safe and sound prospect. And in this draft, you just want to end up with good players. And Donovan Jackson's going to end up being a good player. So solid pick for Minnesota. Wouldn't say it's a home run, but definitely a solid pick. All right, so breaking news, the New York Giants just traded up. We don't know who the pick is, but they are reporting they might take Jackson Dart over Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if I agree with that at all. We'll have to wait and see if that's actually what ends up happening here. I think they should just take Shedeur Sanders and not overthink this one. All right, so the commissioner's walking on stage now. If they take Jackson Dart, they're going to buy into the future of what he potentially could look like, develop him behind Russell Wilson and Jameis. If they take Shedeur, they're probably going to start him at some point this season because he is probably the more win-now caliber quarterback. If it was up to me, I think I would go Shedeur, and they go Jackson Dart. Woo! All right, let me just get this out the way. I don't think Jackson Dart's a first-round caliber quarterback. I would not have taken him in round 1. Frankly, just based off the player he is now, I would not take him round 2. With that said, there is talent there. There's a lot of potential. I'm a little surprised the Giants would pass on Shedeur Sanders and take Jackson Dart in this situation, though. But with all that said, what I will say is getting Abdul Carter in the first, obviously top 3 picks was a great pick there. Then you get your franchise quarterback late into the first round here, and you didn't really have to spend too much to get him. So while I don't love Jackson Dart, I do think that this is the right decision for the Giants to move forward with, especially if you truly do believe Jackson Dart has a higher ceiling than Shedeur. All right, so back-to-back trades. The Atlanta Falcons trade up for another first-round pick here. I guess this might be for Will Johnson or Jahad Campbell. They did have to give up a first-round pick next year, though, which seems like a little bit of an overpay, but I guess if you want to trade up and get a player you want to get, and they take James Pierce Jr. Interesting. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I don't like this pick. I don't like the decision to move up for or spend an extra first-round pick on this. Yes, you get some additional draft capital, but I just don't think that James Pierce Jr. is worth moving up and wasting additional draft capital on. Will Johnson, sure, you can buy me into that. Jahad Campbell, you can buy me into that. Listen, I think James Pierce Jr. has some skill sets that will translate to the NFL. He is an awesome athlete, but there's a lot to work on his game, not to mention some character concerns, and I just don't think Atlanta has the defensive line room to handle those character concerns. So this could end up being an awesome pick for Atlanta, and maybe we're just overthinking it, but just based off what I have seen and what I know, I don't like this decision from Atlanta actually at all. I do want to say last thing about this pick before I move on to the next one. I do like the idea of pairing James Pierce Jr. with Jalen Walker. Those are just two incredible athletes on one side of the football. So if these players develop nicely and the character concerns are not that big of an issue, then we're talking about a defense that's going to be flying around out there and could end up actually really panning out, and this draft looks really good. I'm just thinking there's a lot of risks with both Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr., especially for James Pierce when you're trading back into the first round and giving up so so much. So not the biggest fan of it, but there is a world where this does work out really nicely. All right, the Ravens are on the clock here, and the board is falling really nicely for them. They can go a number of different ways here. But they go Malachi Starks. That was the one that I thought they were going to do, being able to move Kyle Hamilton a bit more closer to the line of scrimmage. I also would have considered Jahad Campbell because he's just a freak in my opinion, and I'm shocked he's still here. He's in my top 5, so that tells you how much I love Jahad Campbell. But Malachi Starks is also in my top 10. In my opinion, is the best safety in this year's draft class. Him going to the Baltimore Ravens just gives so much more versatility to that team, allowing Kyle Hamilton to move closer. Man, it's going to be nice to see him on this team. That defense is going to be really good next year, so this one gets a thumbs up for me. I like this pick for Baltimore. And just, you know, in general, just taking the best talent that falls right into your lap. Don't reach on a edge rusher. Don't reach on an offensive lineman. Just go with best player available. And I guess they felt Malachi was that guy, so I don't blame them. I think he's an awesome player. All right, the Lions are on the board here. It fell pretty nicely for them on the defensive side of things here. And they take Tyleik Williams. Okay, that's a bizarre one for me. Not because I don't think Tyleik's a good player. I think he's a fantastic run stuffer. Just feel like the Lions already have a pretty decent interior defensive line. With Mike Green and Will Johnson being on the board here, kind of feel like this is something they could have addressed with a round 2 pick. I don't hate the pick, though. I think Tyleik's a good talent. Just feel as if this might have been a bit early for him, but man, does he match that Detroit Lions, just punch you in the mouth, you know, like they say, bite your kneecaps off. Like Tyleik Williams kind of fits that mold. So while I don't love the pick, I probably would have done something else with it. I also do see what they're going with here, and I don't hate the pick. So interesting pick. Feels a bit early, but I don't hate the pick. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one works out. All right, Washington pick is in. There's a lot of good defensive players still here, and they go Josh Connerly Jr. Okay. Interesting. Will Johnson still is on the board. Jahad Campbell still on the board. Mike Green is still on the board. All positions they could use. But I guess they're going to take Connerly to be their long-term answer for maybe Andrew Wiley, I guess, or play guard for some injuries they already have on that offensive line with, I can't remember their name right now, the dude from Texas, but he's going to be missing some time. So I guess they feel Josh Connerly could be a long-term play here. I wonder if he starts immediately or is a developmental piece. Interesting pickup, though. I definitely feel as if this is a good play for them if they don't feel too confident about their current offensive line. I just kind of feel like, man, a Will Johnson would have been nice on this team. A Jahad Campbell would be nice, but you know, injury concerns. This team wants to win now, so I can see why they're doing it. I don't hate the pick at all. I like the pick in fact, but just feel as if, man, I think Jahad Campbell would be nasty on this team. Also Mike Green, but maybe they have some issues we're not completely tapped into. So good pick here for Washington. All right, 30th pick, Buffalo Bills are on the board here, and they select Maxwell Hairston. Wow, over Will Johnson. Interesting. So for starters, I think Will Johnson's the better player, but I guess there must be some serious concerns regarding his health, his status, what he's going to look like long term. In this situation, they take Maxwell Hairston, though, and they're going to bank on what is a playmaking corner who's had some good film, some good tape. Interesting pick here. I'm looking at the board, though, and I'm seeing Donovan Ezeraku, Mike Green, Will Johnson, and I'm saying I think those guys are better than Maxwell Hairston. So I guess the concerns and the character issues of some of those guys might be serious. I just think that Maxwell Hairston probably wouldn't have been my pick if I was on the board here, but it definitely would have been one of my options. It just wouldn't have been in my top 3. So not a horrible pick, but just not the pick that I would have done. All right, so a bit of a small trade here. The Eagles actually swapped places with the Chiefs. They gave up a 5th round pick in return. I assume that this is probably going to be for one of the falling players. And man, the Eagles are just going to be another lucky team because so many good players fell right into their lap. All right, the Eagles are about to make their pick, and yet again, they're probably just going to take best player available, and this player is probably going to turn out to be one of the best players in this class, and they take Jahad Campbell, aka my 5th ranked player in this year's draft class. He falls all the way to the Eagles, and man, the Eagles strike again. They always do this, and I don't know why NFL teams do this. Every single year, they just let good players fall. Even if they're slightly injured or have some little small concern with them, it happens every single year. And it happened this year with Jahad Campbell. It's also happening to Will Johnson, by the way, this year. But Jalen Carter had this same exact issue where nobody wanted to take him in the top 10 because of character concerns. And what happens? He goes 10th overall and is probably going to be an all-pro next year. It's going to happen this year with Jahad Campbell, where Jahad Campbell should have been taken top 15. He ends up falling all the way now to 31, and Philadelphia is going to get themselves, in my opinion, a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker at pick 31. So Philly does it again. Great pick, A+ pick, home run hit here for Philadelphia. And again, that defense just gets richer. And the last pick of the first round, Kansas City takes Josh Simmons, the project, I shouldn't say project tackle, but the future tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if he starts instantly or if he starts off as a backup, but Josh Simmons is now a Kansas City Chiefs. Arguably, maybe best case scenario. I mean, a healthy Josh Simmons with no character concerns is probably a top 10 pick. So Kansas City and Philadelphia with back-to-back excellent picks here. Now, real quick before we end the video off, there are some really good players that are falling into day 2. Will Johnson, Luther Burden, some other really awesome players. So I'll make a part 2 to this tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3. If you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.